All right, so in this video, you've read the title. I want to cover how I use video games to learn more skills and successfully run a company. Now, the reason why I want to share this video with you is because a lot of times I hear people say that video games or even hobbies in general are to be avoided because they prevent you from achieving your goals. There's some weird thing nowadays where people think that if you just enjoy your life and if you have free time, you are hurting your opportunities and you're hurting your ability to be successful. I found this to be 100% completely, unfathomably incorrect. And I want to share some of the details about this with you in this video and what you should do instead of listening to these people. So, why playing more video games allowed me to get more done? As you can see, this is me on the right-hand side. I'm playing Nintendo Switch. I think I'm playing Legend of Zelda or something along those lines in my One Piece blanket. And this is something I've been doing a lot. Not necessarily just playing video games. I do still play games, but just enjoying my free time. Now, over the past year, I've grown my business by doubling my revenue. I've improved my marriage by working less over the weekend, going on more dates, writing my first fiction novel, and I actually wrote 2 additional short comics while taking drawing classes, and gaming helped make all of this possible. Now, if you listen to a lot of productivity gurus, like I mentioned, what they typically recommend is just cutting out all fun activities. They tell you to not play video games. They tell you to not watch Netflix. They tell you to just work as much as possible. It's like a competition of who can put the most hours in amongst all these productivity gurus. People think that hours in is what leads to long-term results. Now, if you've actually done any research on productivity, if you've personally tried to put hours in, you'll learn from firsthand experience that this is a complete myth. Hours in does not equal results out. The reality is that the quality of the work you do is what leads to long-term results. And my personal belief is that video games or any fun activity in general is actually the secret sauce to long-term high performance. So what I want to cover today is sort of my 5-step loop for high performance, and it's what I call the Leviticus Loop. Now, before we get into the actual details, my actual 5-step process, why should you listen to me? Now, just a little bit of information about me if you haven't watched any of my other videos. My name is Leviticus Rich, Lenny Richardson. I'm the top productivity trainer here in Northern Virginia. I'm the founder of Productivity Accelerator, which has helped over 15,000 people get more done in less time by using my productivity techniques and strategies. I'm an author, real estate consultant, and podcast host. I've built a 6-figure brand simply through structuring my day more effectively, and I've published several books all before the age of 27. So, what are you going to learn today? Like I mentioned, I'm going to share with you what I call the Leviticus Loop, and it's essentially 5 crucial keys to have consistent productivity. And through this Leviticus Loop, you'll understand more about why video games are actually the secret sauce to getting more done. You're going to learn how to win more without grinding more, how to avoid burnout with intentional rewards, how to stay focused in a distraction-heavy world, and how to execute consistently without overwhelm. And if you look to the right over here, this is a little bit of a spoiler. You can kind of see the 5 steps of the Leviticus Loop over here. We're going to kind of go into them in just a moment, but just kind of outline everything. You have define daily wins, block deep work time, use timed work cycles, reward yourself, and finally, reflect and reset. So let's get into step 1. Step 1 of the Leviticus Loop is define your daily win. Now, this is what I recommend to everyone. Whether you're watching one of my videos, you've probably heard this before, or if you've been a client of mine, or if you're currently a client of mine, you've heard me say this consistently. Define your daily win. How do we do this? Pick one controllable task every single day that you wish to accomplish. Just one. That's all it takes. It's just one. What you should also do is avoid the goals tied to outside factors. And this is a massive mistake I see people make all the time. What a lot of people do is they make their goals tied to external things that they cannot control. And the problem with that is if you're making your goals tied to things that you cannot control, then it's almost impossible to get those things done outside of just pure luck or pure random circumstance. Does that make sense? Instead, make the goals and make the daily tasks that you have tied solely to things that you can do, solely to things that you can schedule, solely to things that you can implement, solely to things that you can measure yourself. This is the key. So, an example of a daily task that you can control is sending 100 emails. If you're a business owner, maybe you want to do cold outreach. Maybe you want to send 100 emails. Maybe you want to write 1,000 words. If you're someone who's like a writer, maybe the goal is just to write 1,000 words. If you, again, are someone who's cold calling, if you're in sales or whatever, maybe the goal is to call 50 leads. Now, I just want to kind of make a note about these for a minute. Understand that the goal is not to get 100 responses for your emails. The goal is not to impress 10, 20, 50, 100 people with your words. And the goal is not to successfully get 50 leads per day. The goal, all these goals I've listed just now, they're all things that you can control. You can control whether or not you send 100 emails per day. You can control if you sit down and write 1,000 words per day. You can control if you call 50 leads per day. They don't have to even pick up. It just might be you calling them, making an active effort to contact them. There's a very big distinction I want you to understand. The key is to focus on actions that influence results, not guarantee them, because you can't truly guarantee results. A lot of people think that there's certain activities or certain actions you can do that guarantee results. And this isn't true. This isn't really the case. With anything in life, there's a little bit of variance. It's going to vary from person to person. But what you can do is kind of take the steps required to get from point A to point B, and through just a lot of consistency, eventually reach the intended destination. Now, I'm going to give kind of a short story about how I learned this lesson myself. Back when I used to do real estate, I'm still a real estate consultant, but full-time, I used to be a real estate agent. And when I first became a real estate agent, when I first got into the business, I was kind of all over the place. I didn't really have good mentorship. I didn't really have a good direction or the good daily structure. And many of the goals people suggested I had, or I should have had back in the day, were based on external forces. So some people would say, oh yeah, you should make the goal to get X amount of leads per day. And the reality is that when I tried to listen to that advice, I noticed that it was virtually impossible to do, at least without burnout. And what I mean by this is I've had people say, oh, you should make the goal to get 10 to 20 leads per day. And so I'd sit there and I'd call leads. I'd cold call people hoping to get leads. And by leads, what I mean for real estate, at least, is people who are scheduling time to come to my office to do a real estate consultation, whether that's a listing consultation or buyer consultation. Not to get super deep into the weeds and the terminologies, but I just want to give you an idea of what I mean. And the problem is that I would have many days where I'd cold call for hours a day and people wouldn't pick up the phone. And so I'd feel super bummed and super disappointed, and that would lead to burnout because I wasn't getting the results that I wanted. And I sat there and thought to myself, I can't control if they pick up the phone. If someone calls and they choose to not answer the phone because they're either at work, they're busy, their phone doesn't work, whatever the reason, these are not things I can control. Sure, I can call them back maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 times. But in the grand scheme of things, whether or not they pick up the phone to start is completely out of my control. So why am I making my emotions? Why am I making my long-term strategy dependent on that outcome? It doesn't make sense. It's nonsensical. So what I eventually learned is that in order to be consistent, and consistency is a big key to what leads to long-term success. It's probably one of the biggest keys, to be honest. In order to be consistent and not get overwhelmed, not get burnt out, not feel super unhappy with my results, rather than focus on actions that are dependent on other people, like rather than focus on a goal that's dependent on other people, what I should do instead is simply just do things that are within my control. So that's why I recommend picking a daily win based only on what you can control. Because when you do these things that are under your control, when you successfully achieve them, you build momentum, you build self-confidence. And with that momentum and self-confidence, you eventually get the results. I had a client in the past who was a writer. That was his goal. He wanted to be a writer. And the problem with his writing is that whenever he kind of sit down at his computer and try to actually get things done and write, he'd always find either excuses to not be able to write, or he'd get writer's block. He was kind of in his head and he didn't know exactly what to write. So when he did schedule time to sit down and try to write, he wouldn't get much done. And since he wasn't getting much done, it would lead to him feeling negative about his goal, and he would stop trying to achieve the goal. What I suggested to him was writer's block doesn't matter. What you should focus on is something that's completely in your control. And if you're wondering how writer's block is sort of external, my belief when it comes to writer's block or creativity in general is that when you're trying to be creative, you're trying to please other people. You're trying to make something that's pleasing to you, sure, but something that you believe is pleasing to other people as well. I think that's kind of what creativity comes down to. And so I think when you get writer's block, you're overthinking what to put on the paper. You're trying to put words on the paper that to other people seem compelling or seem interesting. And because you're kind of putting yourself in other people's heads, you're blocking yourself from just producing something. And so what I suggested, just write for 45 minutes a day. This is something that I did myself too, by the way. Just write for 45 minutes a day. Sit down at a specific time that you've designated and just write for 45 minutes. Even if you're writing nonsense, even if you're just writing like words that don't really make much sense or just aren't very coherent, it doesn't matter. Just write. The idea behind that is to just get stuff done that's within your control. Because once you start to write for, say, 25 minutes a day or 35 minutes, or maybe even 45 minutes, and say the results aren't great, it doesn't matter because you've at least done something. One is better than zero. Something is better than nothing. And you've at least made some progress. You can always go back and tweak whatever you wrote. You can always go back and improve whatever has been done in the past. The idea is just to get done more things. It's to do more of what you control rather than allow the expectations or the results that are predicated on other people's actions to define or control you. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, step 2, block deep work time. And I kind of already, I guess, alluded to this when I mentioned the writer, but this is my recommendation. This is step 2. Take 2 to 4 hours of distraction-free work time and just work. Block that out. Make sure you do nothing else during this time. And this is a big thing I see a lot of people mess up with often as well. What a lot of people do is they may block out that time. Getting them to block out that time is already a challenge in itself. But let's say they do block out that work time. The issue is that they get super distracted. We live in an era nowadays where people get so distracted by every little thing. And to some degree, I'm not blaming people. There's a lot of technology. There's a lot of very smart people at these companies who go out of their way, whose sole focus is to make sure that you pay attention to whatever they're pushing, whether it's Instagram with the colors being a certain way or the infinite scroll feature or any social media platform, whether it's kind of the culture of society telling you that you should always be kind of addicted to your emails or always be trying to be hyper productive in whatever your standard job is, whatever it is. There's always someone trying to get your attention. And because someone else is trying to get your attention, that means that it's up to you to guard your attention more appropriately. It's up to you to be the person who determines what you're going to focus on every single minute of every single day. These are important. So what I recommend during these 2 to 4 hours of work time, don't be distracted by the people around you. Don't be distracted by your phone, by your calls, by your text messages. Do not be distracted. Just work. It's amazing what you can get done in 2 to 4 hours per day if you just sit down and work. I recommend removing your phone, silencing notifications, blocking interruptions, everything. If you have to, put your phone in airplane mode, put it on grayscale mode, put it in a different room. I've recommended all these things to my clients. I recommend these things to you as well. Your phone is the biggest distraction you'll likely face in the modern era. Personally, I do not answer my phone very frequently. And this is something that agitates tons of people. People get so mad at me. I do not answer my phone when I'm working. And I'm working a lot, so I don't answer my phone very often. The reason why I don't answer my phone very often is because 99% of the time, the phone calls you're getting are not very important. They're not important to your goals. I'm not saying they aren't important as far as maybe it's a family member calling to say hi or friends trying to connect. I'm not saying that they're completely unimportant. But when it comes to your goals, they're probably not very important. If it's a phone call that's going to lead to you getting your results faster for whatever your personal goals are, sure, take the phone call. If it's not, don't do it. I usually recommend for phone calls, kind of as a side note, if you find people call you a lot and maybe it's a work associate or, someone that is relatively important that you do need to speak to at least somewhat often, a few things you can do. 1, give them times where you're free to talk on the phone. Have them call during those times. 2, tell them to text. I like texting anyway. Texting is actually, to me, a bit more efficient than calling. for a few different reasons. 3, have them leave a voice note. I've known people who just do not like texting. For whatever reason, they just have a hard time like typing on their phones. I don't know why they don't like it, but they just don't like it. To each their own. Fair enough. For those people, if you prefer to talk and you don't like to text, leave a voice note. You can talk on voice note, and then when I am finished my work, I'll respond to it when I finish, not right away. And it sounds like super anal, but you have to be anal with your time because you don't get your time back. Time is the most valuable thing you'll ever have. And a lot of people waste time frequently by allowing other people to control their day. They allow other people to call them whenever the other people feel like calling, and they prevent you from actually getting stuff done. And then when you bring it up to them, they don't really care about it because it's not their time they're wasting. It's your time they're wasting. Don't let that happen. Maintain focus and block out distractions. Now, I know a story of this guy. He was a CEO at a company. I won't say his name, but I've met him in the past and we've kind of talked before. And he told me a story about how he was kind of crippling from phone calls and employee interruptions. He had a mentor in the past who told him that if you really want to be serious with your company, you need to have sort of a brick and mortar like office space. You need to come in at a certain time every single day, and you need to be there with your employees to monitor them and make sure they're getting stuff done. So he took his mentor's advice, and he'd come in at like 9 a.m., 8 a.m. every single morning, leave at like 5 or 6 every single evening. And after a while, he said that he would get so stressed because he felt like he wasn't getting much done. Before this, he used to work remote, and all of his employees used to work remote as well. And he said that when he worked remote, he got so much more done. But then once he got into the office, he found like every 5 minutes, the same people who were perfectly fine working on their own all of a sudden needed him for every little thing. Every little question they had, they'd come to him and get his advice. They'd always have a problem that he needed to solve. And his thought process was, it's because he's around too much that he's enabling people to interrupt him more frequently. And in their minds, it's done with good intentions because they're trying to get the boss's approval of the work they're doing to make sure that the company's running efficiently and they're not making mistakes. In his mind, he's thinking to himself, I can't grow the business. I can't do the things that I need to do with my job description because you guys are coming to me with all your problems, which should be your jobs. Like, it's your job to figure these things out on your own, unless it's extreme. But they're more focused with not making mistakes rather than focusing on just bringing to him the most important questions. Hopefully that makes sense. So eventually he stopped doing the in-person thing and he went to just being remote. And he found that being remote was more impactful. And when he did things remote, what he would do is he'd block out certain hours of the day to make those solely times where people can contact him. So from like 9 to 11, he was in deep work. From like 12 to 1, those were the times you can send him. Those were the times you can call him with any questions. And you only had that block of time. So you only had to bring the most important questions. Otherwise, your question wouldn't get answered because you'd have a queue of people asking questions. And then if you wanted to email him, you could also email him. But he explicitly told his employees, I treat my emails like I treat my text messages. I'm not going to respond right away. So if you have a question that requires like a urgent response, call me during the blocked out times that I have to accept phone calls. Otherwise, shoot me an email and expect me to get to it within like a day or two. And it worked very well for him. It helped him grow his company. I bring all this up to explain to you, you need to block out time to do work. And when you block out that time, make sure it's blocked out specifically for that one activity. Don't let other things distract you. One more story. When I worked as a real estate agent, my broker was actually very good with time management. And I noticed with him, they kind of did the same thing to my broker that my CEO friend experienced, where they'd sort of just barge into his office with questions because they had a question and because he was nearby. If he wasn't nearby, they wouldn't ask him questions. They wouldn't call him. They'd figure it out on their own. If he was nearby, they'd find something to ask him about. So what my broker used to do is when he was kind of in meetings or when he was doing deep work, he put up a sign on his door. He kind of had like a glass office so you can see inside his office when he was there. And you can see when he wasn't there. But he put a sign up that says like flow state in session or genius at work, something like that. Pretty much to tell people, don't bother me right now. I'm busy. But if you have to isolate yourself, do it. This is how you get stuff done. So that's step number 2. Step 3, use timed work cycles. Now, I've talked about this before in different videos, and maybe you've heard about these concepts, Pomodoro, deep work. Basically, what Pomodoro is you're setting aside a certain amount of time. It can be 25 minutes to work. And after those 25 minutes, you take 5 to 10 minutes to relax, take a break, scroll, whatever you want to do. And then once those 5 to 10 minutes are up, you get back to work for another 25 minutes. And you sort of repeat these work cycles, these intervals, as much as possible in order to get things done. Now, what I personally found is that it takes a bit of practice to adapt to kind of this workflow. A lot of people aren't used to kind of sitting there and focusing for any extended period of time on anything. Like I mentioned, it's easy for us to get distracted. So what a lot of people do is they might try to do Pomodoro, but then they'll pull out their phone, all that stuff. Avoid it. I use a Pomodoro timer on my web browser, and pretty much it's kind of on the side. You can see it counting down. And then once it reaches 0, once that interval is finished, it'll just ring very loudly. And the reason why I like this and the reason why I recommend this is because it allows you to kind of feel a sense of urgency. When you feel that urgency, you're more inclined to work during these intervals. If you don't set a timer, it's easy for time to get lost. It's easy for you to drift off. It's easy for you to feel like 5 minutes have passed, or, a minute or two have passed, when in reality, like 10 or 15 minutes have passed. So set those timers. And I found that once you kind of do this consistently enough, it's easier for you to get into a flow state. And sort of what flow state is, if you're not super familiar with it, basically it's kind of this timeless sensation where focus is effortless and time just kind of feels like it's condensed. I don't know if that's the best word, but you basically feel like you can get a lot more done in a lot less time. And you do get a lot more done in a lot less time. It's kind of like the opposite of, it's similar actually to when for anyone who's experienced this, when you're like a kid and you're having fun with your friends and time just flies by and you're like, oh man, look at the time. Like time just went by so quick. I feel like I just got here and we just started having fun. Now all of a sudden it's like been 4 hours. It's similar to that, but it's kind of the opposite, where when you're in your flow state, it feels like time is slowing down, or it kind of feels like time's going regularly, but you're getting so much done to the point where you'll work for what feels like 2 hours and you'll check your clock and it's been like 20 minutes. So it's you getting 2 hours of productivity in a day within 20 minutes, which is nice because you can work more. You can sort of get more done a lot faster, get the results you want quicker without actually wasting as much time, or I guess in this case, using that much time. So this is what I recommend. Use timed work cycles. I tend to find too that it kind of helps avoid any mental fatigue that one might have. What people try to do when they work is they have an idea of things they want to do in a given day, and they bounce from thing to thing. They might want to edit video. So they edit a video here and they stop and they watch a little bit of TV, scroll on social media, then they edit a video again. Or they might want to write a book, some content, a blog article, whatever it is you're doing. And they write for a little bit, get distracted, focus on the distraction for a few minutes, do something else, find another distraction, then eventually remember that they were writing, then they go back to writing, and they're bouncing all over the place. And if you were to track their performance and track what they've actually accomplished, you'd find that after a day or so, they haven't gotten that much done. They feel like they've gotten a lot done because they're doing so many random things that don't really matter. But in actuality, if you were to measure objective performance, they haven't gotten that much done. And the issue is that because they're bouncing from thing to thing, they're starting to get mentally exhausted and they feel super tired. And then they get overwhelmed because maybe after a week, they realize like, oh, wow, I've been doing a lot, but not a lot's been produced. And the reason is because you're not doing much of what matters. You're doing a bunch of just nonsense. You're scrolling, you're watching TV. Not that these things aren't good, but if you're doing it without structure, you get mentally overwhelmed. You get mentally fatigued. So you avoid this by using these work cycles. So that's why I recommend this. So that's step 3 of the Leviticus Loop. Now, step 4, reward yourself. And this is where the video game aspect comes into play. What I recommend people do is reward your progress, but don't use your hobbies or use your fun to escape from work. What do I mean by this? A lot of people use things like video games or movies or Netflix or whatever as a means of escaping work. They use it as a form of procrastination almost. It's kind of like when you're in college and you have a test coming up or a paper to write or something you have to like study or prepare for. Rather than do that, what a lot of people do is they'll hang out with friends, they'll party, they'll play video games, they'll go to the movies, they'll do everything besides the thing that matters the most. And I think the issue is that when you do that, you kind of make a habit out of procrastinating, and you make a habit out of not getting stuff done by not performing. Instead, what I recommend is shift your habits so that way you're working first. And then once you've gotten a certain amount of work done, you reward yourself with the fun stuff. You reward yourself with the video games. You reward yourself with the parties, with the movies, whatever it is you want to do. Don't put the cart before the horse is essentially what I'm trying to say. And the reason why I'm saying this is because once you kind of get into this habit, work and fun almost become one and the same, which makes it easier to work. It makes it easier to get more stuff done. If you know that if you, let's say you're in college, write this paper, and once you write this paper, or even if you break it down into chunks, maybe you have a 10-page paper, maybe it's due in like a month. So you break it in chunks, and every single week you write like 3 pages or something, 3 or 4 pages. If at the end of the week you've written 4 pages, you can stop and reward yourself and say, hey, you know what? I did what I was supposed to do. Let's go on a video game binging session. And it's perfectly fine because you've made progress, but you're also making time for fun. And then eventually, as you do this consistently, you're going to find that your brain is like, oh, whenever I work, I get a good positive result at the end of it. So let me just work more. Does that make sense? Like, you want to put yourself in a position where you see the results of your work as a positive thing. What most people do is they get the opposite results. When you're in school and you're told to work or you're told to study, what comes at the end of it is a test, something that's not pleasurable, something that's not comfortable or not fun. And so what happens over time is you start to hate the work because you hate the test. You hate the reward that you're getting as a result. I'm saying to take control and shift it. Do the work. And after you've done the work, give yourself a big reward. If you do it that way, you're going to see the work as something to look forward to because you know 100%, oh, if I do the work, I'm going to get this big reward. I'm guaranteed to get it. When I was in school, when I was in grade school, actually, my parents kind of used this to their advantage for me. I hated studying. I did not like homework. And what my parents would do is they would say, oh, if you do good on your test, you'll get a video game, or you'll get, back in the day, Yu-Gi-Oh cards were big. They'd say, oh, you get Yu-Gi-Oh cards. We'll get you something if you do well. And so it's an incentive. It's like, oh, I get a reward if I do well. So let me do well to get the reward. And if I don't do well, I don't get the reward, which feels shitty. I want the reward, so I'm more inclined to do well. It's really that simple. It's not very complicated, but a lot of people don't use kind of like these mental hacks to their advantage. You want to use your games or your hobbies or whatever it is as an anchor for long-term success. And it doesn't need to be video games. That's just one example. But it does need to be a significant enough reward. And the key word is significant. If it's something too small, your brain's not going to see it as super exciting or super worthwhile. If it's something you can easily get, it's not that great. And so you're not super inclined to put the work in to get the rewards. Like, for example, here's a simple reward. If you reward yourself with, I don't know, candy. Candy's easy to get. And candy probably doesn't make you feel that happy in the grand scheme of things. Maybe it does. And if it does, then this could be your reward. But for a lot of people, candy probably doesn't make them that excited. It's easy to get. It's a couple cents, $1, whatever, at any store. So if you were to spend 7 hours working and getting like good work done, rewarding yourself with like a piece of candy or a bag of candy isn't that exciting. But what if you worked 7 hours a day? You did deep work. You focused extremely. And at the end of that, you got, maybe if you like clothing, a nice outfit that you wanted for a while, or a book that you've wanted to read for a while, or you got a brand new video game that just hit the market that you really wanted to play for a long time. It's more exciting. It's more rewarding. And if you tie the work to the reward, you're going to do the work more frequently. So let me give you an example of how I use this in my life. I still use this technique to this day. One of my goals is to create a long-running comic book. Now, at first I wanted to kind of pay someone to kind of draw the comic, but I wanted to learn a new skill, and I like drawing. So I figured, you know what? I'll teach myself how to draw. I'll take classes, and I'll just draw the comic book in my free time. And I'll say this, it's been super rewarding to draw this comic book. Like, it's become an addiction, to be honest. But what I do is I don't put the cart before the horse. I don't draw, then try to get stuff done. because it'll have the opposite effect. If I try to draw, I'll start drawing all day and I'll never get work done because I'm putting the fun stuff before the work. Instead, as I flip it, I do the work, things like creating YouTube content, reaching out to clients, doing sales calls, all that stuff. I do the work first. And at the end of my day, assuming I've gotten the work done, I have time blocked out to draw. Does that make sense? I do the work first, productivity accelerator. Then I reward myself with the fun stuff, the art, the drawing. And this works for everything. Like this literally works for anything and everything you can think of. If you're trying to get in better shape, if you have a fitness goal, reward yourself with a cheat meal at the end of the week if you've successfully lifted or exercised the way you intended to. If you've, hit your sales goals for your company, or if you've saved up enough money, if you've been budgeting effectively or paying down debt, whatever your finance goal might be, buy yourself a nice item from your wish list every quarter, every month, every day. Depends on what your personal situation is, but give yourself a nice enough reward. Relationships. If your spouse, for example, has been doing, what he or she said they would do in your relationship, reward them. Reward them with a week out or a vacation or whatever it is you agreed to do. And you can tweak this, but the point that I'm making is that give a reward when the work's been finished. Don't flip it. Don't reward yourself first and then say you're going to do the work. You're not going to do it. So this is my recommendation. This trains your brain to crave discipline because in your brain, the dopamine boost you get from the reward you receive is going to be on the exact same tier as the discipline required to get the reward. Do this enough and it'll become a habit. This is like a crazy big hack that a lot of people do not use, but trust me, this is like a game changer. Now, the final step, reflect and reset. End your day with 5-minute long logs, like journal entries. In these journal entries, put what you've done today to win and put what you can improve on, because every day is not going to be perfect. 99% of the time, your day is not going to be perfect. You're going to mess something up. That's to be expected. That's natural. That's perfectly fine. But be honest with yourself and put the things that you can improve on. I mentioned earlier in the video that one of the key traits of success, and this has been scientifically proven, by the way, is consistency. Another one of those three keys of success is reiteration. And a part of reiteration is reflection. You want to study what went well and study what went incorrectly. Tweak what did not work. Recently, not too long ago, I had a call with someone who didn't take my advice. I think this was about a month ago. I was on a call with somebody and they were saying how months have gone by and they've made zero progress on their goals. They had a goal of kind of starting their own business. And one of the main things they wanted to do was create a lead magnet. At least when we were kind of dissecting what their tasks were to get from point A to point B, what they said is like creating the lead magnet seems to have been the thing that's been holding them back the most. And so what I told him to do is spend 1 to 2 hours per day, just 1 to 2 hours per day. He had the time. We went over a schedule and he had the time. 1 to 2 hours to create the lead magnet. Don't make it perfect and then pitch it to people based on his target demographic. After 2 weeks, we've had our conversations, and every time I called him, every time we had our phone calls, I would say, "Did you make progress?" No, some excuse he had. I didn't make progress today. I got busy. Okay, tomorrow. Did you make progress? No, I didn't make progress today. Another excuse. After 2 weeks, he had still not made the lead magnet despite having plenty of time to do it. He didn't really reflect and ask why he wasn't using his time wisely. Like I would sit there and say, what exactly is stopping you from getting this lead magnet done? I've given you all the tools you could possibly use. I've given you all the resources I can come up with. You have the time. I don't really see what the excuse is for you to not make this lead magnet. It should be really simple. Like with everything we've covered, it should take you probably like 20 minutes to make it. So what's stopping you? Like what's holding you back? And he wasn't really sure. He didn't really have a good answer to what was holding him back. He kind of just was very vague and he's all over the place about it. And ultimately, as you can imagine, he didn't finish the lead magnet. To this day, I'm sure he probably has still not started this company that he's been procrastinating on starting for months. And to be honest, this is probably going to sound a little bit mean. He probably never will because he's procrastinating and because he's making a habit out of finding excuses to not get done the things that he wants to get done. This is true of many people, by the way. This is true of most people. Most people do the exact same thing. So he's not alone in this. But because he wasn't willing to reflect adequately, he never properly identified the barriers. And without recognizing the barriers to his progress, he can't push past them. Does that make sense? Like, in order for you to jump over an obstacle, in order for you to push past an obstacle, you have to be able to identify that the obstacle even exists. And then once you understand what the obstacle is, that's when the strategy to overcome it can be made. In my own personal life, I often try to reflect and tweak whatever it is I'm doing. I mentioned I draw, and I mentioned that art has been one of my current goals. Another one of my current goals is to learn Portuguese. The reason is because my wife is from Brazil. Her family speaks Portuguese. I want to be able to speak with her family at least somewhat confidently. I don't expect to be fluent overnight, but I do want to at least understand them better and have them understand me better so that way we can see face to face. And I feel like that'll also help in my relationship as well with my wife because, like I mentioned, her first language is Portuguese. So it'd be nice to kind of speak with her in a way that she's most familiar with, where she can express herself better. And so my goal was to become at least proficient by December 1st, 2025. Now, for a while, I had a goal of wanting to learn Portuguese, but the problem is that I never really made it like a concrete goal. I didn't give it like a deadline. And so I'd stop and start and stop and start over and over again. And after sort of analyzing like my barriers, the thing that you should be analyzing every single day, I realized that the issue is that I lacked external accountability. That was the thing that I knew. It's like if I had external accountability outside of my wife or anyone that I knew personally, that would help me take my Portuguese speaking more seriously and be more consistent with it. And then by being consistent, I'd be able to achieve more results. So what I did is I hired a one-on-one tutor the very next day, and I've been studying Portuguese at least 30 minutes every day since then. And of course, with accountability, you have different perspectives and they can give you different tips that you might not have even considered. But the point is that by reflecting, I was able to boost my performance. And I would like to say that in the past like month or so of trying to learn Portuguese, it's improved significantly, like far beyond what it had been improving, like the rate that it had been improving months prior by me kind of going on and off, simply because I'm focused and I'm structured and I have someone like reviewing what I'm doing, keeping me accountable and making sure that I'm actually doing my homework, watching things in Portuguese, speaking in Portuguese more consistently. So this is why it's important to reflect and reset. Now, one final thing I want to share is burnout, because burnout to me is kind of like the massive enemy to productivity. A lot of people burn out, really, in my personal opinion, from what I've researched and from what I've seen, because they work hard for a long duration of time without seeing the expected results. So for example, if you have a business, you burn out because you're putting in effort, but you're not getting money or reaching milestones. Maybe you're someone who just started a business, it's your first business, and you expected to have clients in 4 months. It's been a year and you have not seen a single client. You'll probably burn out if you haven't already burned out because you're not reaching the goals that you want in the duration of time that was expected. If you have a fitness goal, and I see this a lot as someone who's trained people in the past and as some people who is in the fitness community and sees people try to get involved in fitness, I see this a lot. People burn out because they believe they're exercising a lot, but they're not gaining muscle or losing fat quickly enough. That's usually like the main two. People usually want to lose weight to tone or get a six pack or to look better if you're someone who's overweight. Or if you're someone who's skinnier, you probably want to gain muscle and kind of add size to your frame. But people don't do it consistently. And when they don't do it consistently, they don't get the results. And they don't get the results and do it consistently because they burn out. There's various reasons why that happens. But, the point is they burn out because they're doing a lot of effort. They're putting in a lot of effort and not getting the results that they desire. Understand that working hard does not equal working smart. I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of people put a lot of work into something. They think hours in equals output. You can work 12 hours a day and not do very much at all and not get much done. I already explained earlier, a lot of people think they're working hard, and in reality, what they're doing is they're bouncing from thing to thing numerous times throughout the day, and they're not making any progress by doing this. You need to be clear on what it is you're trying to do. You need to have structure, and you need to make sure that you're getting feedback and rewarding yourself for the things you're doing. Feedback because you might be doing the incorrect things, and a reward so that way if you're doing the correct things, you're doing it long enough and consistently enough so you don't burn out, so you can actually get the success that you want. So this is why I kind of shared this 5-step process. That is sort of the Leviticus Loop. It solves all of this. It allows you to create a win, get the results of that win, reward yourself for those results, reflect on what it is that allowed you to win in the first place, so you can do less of what will make you lose and do more of what makes you win, so you can win better and faster. And then you can repeat this process. It's a self kind of like, it's sort of a positive feedback loop that will always increase your performance over time, because you're always improving. You're always trying to tweak a little bit to get a little bit better every single time you go through this loop. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. That is the Leviticus Loop. That is kind of the strategy that I recommend that'll help you get more done in less time. And by implementing good rewards like video games, you'll kind of enable yourself to get the progress that you want and get the results you want consistently without the burnout, without the negative downsides that most people face. So if you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments. One more thing that I want to share with you before I end this video. If you're trying to achieve your goals this year, I highly recommend signing up for a free 30-minute call with me. A lot of people, I mentioned this in the video earlier, a lot of people, the thing that they do incorrectly is they don't get feedback. They do nothing. That's one thing. Or they do the incorrect things consistently. And if you're doing the incorrect things consistently, you're not going to get the results you want. And if you're doing nothing, you're not going to get the results you want. I help you eliminate all of that. So if you sign up for my free 30-minute one-on-one session with me, we'll go over what you can expect to gain from my long-term coaching. I'll help you come up with a game plan to achieve your goals as quickly as possible and as easily as possible. And just full transparency, when I do my one-on-one training, it is not cheap. I'm looking for people who are super serious about getting the results they want in as little time as possible. Like I mentioned, time is finite. Time is more valuable than money. So I want people who take that very seriously. Most people don't take it very seriously. Most people waste time, and they're happy to waste time, which is fine. But I don't want those people here because my program is expensive. So I don't want you to waste money. But only schedule the initial free session if you're serious about trying to get results and trying to get things done much faster. If you're interested, there's a link below in the description. Looking forward to hearing from you if you do sign up. But until the next video, I'll see you. Peace out. Bye.